Hello, hello, hello. Today, I just wanted to say a little bit about how I really feel like I fit in here in Honduras, appearance-wise. Now, this is kind of an interesting topic for me because it's not like I felt like I didn't exactly fit in appearance-wise in Scotland, but it's just different. It's different in a different way. So I'm gonna explain a little bit about how I felt being here. So obviously, I do have curly hair, like I'm biracial, so I'm like half black and half white. So, like in Scotland, it's not like I felt like I didn't fit in until there was this one moment when I was in school, and I think I must have been about 8 years old, something like that. And before then, I didn't really think that much about my appearance, to be honest. Like, I knew I looked different, but I didn't I don't know, I didn't really think much about it. However, it sort of became a thing when I was in school, and this teacher was reading us a book about diversity. And it was talking about people who are disabled, people who use wheelchairs, people who have different coloured hair, people, just all different types of diversity you can get. And it, like, the next page was, it was saying something like, there are people who have different colored skin to you. And I was saying, like, basically just don't worry if people look different to you. We're all people, we're all human, and we have to be treating each other with equity rather than, just yeah, basically just being nice to everyone. And so anyway, when she said that there are people who look different to you and people who have different colored skin to you, the whole class, like, I mean, this is my imagine, like, this, it's not my imagination, it's like what I'm remembering from like 10 years ago or something. So maybe it wasn't, maybe I'm not saying it exactly the way it happened, but the way I remember it, like everyone in the whole class, was like maybe 25 people, like they all just turned around and just stared at me. And then I just remember sitting there and thinking, like, oh, am I different? And then, like, I get that the whole book was supposed to be making people feel included and everything like that, but I'd never, from since like before that moment, I'd never felt more like I didn't fit in. And just because everyone just turned around and stared at me, and then I'm just like, oh, I guess I'm different. And I don't blame the teacher at all. I think like it's good obviously having things like that, like diversity things. However, I just guess it's just like kids being kids. Like if they think that I'm different, then they're not gonna like hold back on that. Especially because they're just looking. It's not like they tried to make me feel excluded or anything like that. But yeah, it's like, for example, sometimes in one time in first grade they had like it was like Secret Santa, and then they had to like stand up and they had to like describe who this person was with them, and the whole class had to guess who it was. But these kids, like, they just weren't aware, and then they just stared at the person, and they're just like, this person is wearing a green t-shirt, and just staring right at that person's like I mean, to me and the teacher it was so obvious who it was. So yeah, kids can be like that. They can just like stare and not really think about how it makes, like how it appears to the outside world, I guess. So yeah, I don't have like any bitterness towards that situation. It was just a very big realization to me. And so after that happened, like I was just sort of aware of it, and I was like, I don't want to be different from everyone. Like, it's not like I had a problem with how I looked, but I didn't want everyone else thinking I was different from them. I didn't want them thinking, like, I don't know, I just wanted to fit in. I wanted people to like me. I just wanted to be normal. And so anyway, after that, like, I remember very distinctly, like, I'd be like putting my hands next to my friend's hands like that, and I'd just be like, see, look, our skin's like pretty much the same. I don't have, my skin isn't that much darker. Like, because I had like other kids in the class had like more tan skin and whatever. But I mean, obviously, like, I'm not white as as everyone in my class were. And well, yeah. So, like, I mean, obviously, I was different, but I didn't want, like, I don't know, I didn't want everyone thinking, like, you're different. You know what I mean? So, I guess I was just a kid. I was just like, I just wanted to fit in. So, anyway, like, from that time on, I didn't like think hugely about my appearance as such, but I definitely was a lot more. I had like my attention was very much drawn to it a bit more. So for example, I'm very tall, like I was always one of the tallest in my class. And like after that I was just like, oh, I don't want to be different. So I'm gonna like when I was standing with my friends, I used to like stand with my legs like that, like really wide so that I would like go down and I would look shorter. And it's just like at first they're just like, why are you doing that? I'm like, well now we're the same height. And they're like, okay. And so like yeah, and I think I just had a bit of a problem with looking different sometimes. Um, but not all the time. Like for example, I very rarely wanted to straighten my hair. I didn't really care about having my hair straightened. Sometimes I used to brush it out so big and then it went like massive. I used to love having my afro hair. I mean now it's a bit too long for it to be like afro, but yeah, I used to love that. Um so it's not like I had a huge problem with being different. I think it very much like my attention was drawn to it. So now fast forward to maybe about S3. So I think I was about 13 years old, maybe 14. And you're reading a book and it's called The Hate You Give. It's basically about like the perspective of like African Americans living in living in the United States, sorry, where there are like lots of shootings and police officers like racially discriminating against certain people. So basically in the book, and this boy, he was like young, don't remember how old he was, but he got shot, and the whole story was basically from the perspective of this girl who was friends with this boy that got shot. And it's a whole thing about like racial awareness, about basically just being different, because this girl, she went to like a school where most people were white, and she was talking a lot about the racial differences and things like that. Um or how it feels to be like an African American living in the United States. So it was very interesting. I absolutely loved that book. And from that time on, I sort of felt more connected to like that side of like my roots, I guess, that side of, the part of me. So yeah, and it was very interesting because after reading that book and after that time, I very much felt like I still felt like, I didn't feel that different, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, I am actually different from the rest of the people in my class, the rest of the people that I go to school with. And I was just sort of dealing with that a little bit, and I was sort of like very aware about those differences. So, anyway, here in Honduras, it's so interesting because there are not really tourists, like there's very rarely foreign people here. It's like not a huge, country that, or especially, yeah, let me say the place that I am in my little village, it's not filled with tourists that often. When there are tourists, people know, or when they're foreigners, people know, and they'll get stared at, especially if they look different, if they're speaking English, whatever. So anyway, like when we were getting ready to go to Honduras, when we had our training, they were like, well, you're gonna get stared at, you're gonna like there's gonna be people who are gonna be treating you differently because you're foreign, there's gonna be these things happening. I was like, whatever, that's okay. Like I didn't think that much of it. But I got here, that didn't happen because I would just walk down the street, people wouldn't bat an eyelid. They wouldn't like think anything differently because I looked kind of like other people look here. And it's not like there's a specific Honduran look, like that's not it at all, because there's people from so many different places over. Okay, I don't want to say that sounding like there's a lot of diversity here, because if someone from, I don't know, say someone walked around the street and they had like bright, like naturally red, like ginger hair, like they would definitely get stared at. Like if you're white, if you look just, I don't know, I guess just more if you're white, or if you come from, I don't know, Asia or something like that, and you will like get stared at and things. So anyway, I was expecting that because I mean I was foreign, but yeah, that didn't happen. And so it was interesting because like yeah, I'm not saying Honduran people have one certain looks, that's not it at all. There's people from like who have like European backgrounds, there's people who have even more like African backgrounds too. And there are people like indigenous people that like, well, people who descend from indigenous people. And there's just a lot of Yeah, there's a lot of like, I want to say diversity, but it's not the same type of diversity that you get in Scotland. Like the diversity we get in Scotland, it's more like you have mostly white people, and then but you also have a lot of people from other countries. Like there's so many people from other countries in Europe, a lot of people from like Asia, Africa, like the Americas. Like yeah, there's kind of Australian too, I guess. Like like there's people from kind of everywhere, but it's not like dominant, if that makes sense. Like it's predominantly white. Whereas here, it's like there's just sort of like a big mixture, but it's not as diverse. So like I don't know, I'd say like well, I'm just guessing. This is not a fact, but I'd say there's probably like 90% of people here are Honduran. Like it's very like there's really not that many foreign people. So anyway, like I very much just fit in here because of my appearance, my hair, like I have dark hair. It's curly, yeah, and there are quite a lot of people who have curly hair here too. Um, like my skin tone, everything, like I just sort of fit in until I start talking. When I start talking, then they notice that I'm foreign. Most of the time they don't really say anything, but yeah, I do sound foreign. So yeah, it's really interesting. And yeah, I think like for me it very much felt like a shock. It felt very strange because I mean, I was born in Scotland, like I've lived there my whole life. I've lived in the same house my whole life until now. And so it's strange, like feeling like appearance wise, I fit in more here. It's very interesting. I mean, like I said before, I'm very tall, so that I do stand out because of that. Because most people that I've yeah, there are quite a lot of short people here that I've noticed, but this is in this region in my village. Like there are lots of other regions in Honduras where there are people who are taller. So like at work there are two other female members of staff who are like they're not as tall as I am, but like they're kind of like they're pretty tall as well. So yeah, I think like my height doesn't really set me like apart that much. And it was just so interesting because I just didn't feel like I don't know, it's not like I felt like I was, I guess, an outsider from like appearance wise. Like if I just didn't say anything, or at least if I said very few things, they wouldn't pick up the fact that I was foreign. It's not like I didn't want people to know where I was from. It's not really like that. It's not like I'm ashamed to be from Scotland or anything like that. But it was just so like I felt like I could just settle. There was one time when I think I was like 12, 10 or 12, and I did this like sports club, right? And it's funny because I was very shy and quiet. I still can be kind of shy, but it's funny because there was the coach and he just like he looked at me and he knew that I was shy and he wanted to be sort of inclusive, right? So when he was trying to talk to me, he was doing a bunch of hand gestures, he was talking slowly, he was like doing actions and everything because I think he thought that I don't know, I can speak English or something. Um and it was funny because he was just like, he was trying to make sure I understood. And I did understand. I was just quiet. Obviously, I could understand because English is my first language. Um, and so anyway, it's funny. Because like he'd say like the instructions to the group, then he'd make sure like I would understand. He was very sweet. Like I think like I don't have a problem with that either. But the funny part was when one day he just asked me a question or something, and I just like went just like talking like how I'm talking now. I was just talking normally, kind of like fast in my little kid's Scottish accent. Well, I wouldn't say it's a strong Scottish accent, but in my little Edinburgh Scottish accent. And then he was just like, oh. And then after that, there was no more hand signals, no more anything like that. And it was like, it's just funny because um yeah, it's like I wasn't offended at all by it, but it was just like the concept of like, me being quiet. If I didn't look the way that I looked, if I was quiet, he might have just thought I'm just a quiet kid, rather than thinking, I don't know. It was just very interesting. And also I was here, this was like maybe like a month ago, maybe less. And there were some people from the United States and they were over here and they were making, I don't know, they were doing stuff anyway. At the school, I think they were making tables, they were reading stories to the kids, stuff like that. And so anyway, um, there is this. So there are two incidents that happened. There's one where there's this woman was she asked me if I was from here, which I mean to be fair, I did just translate like before then I did just translate some Spanish like because there were kids like that were talking, but they were just rambling on in Spanish and then I could tell they were like what are they saying? So anyway, I just told her what they said. And so anyway, she was like, "Oh, are you from here?" I'm like, "No, I'm from Scotland." And then they're like, "Oh, you're from Scotland." And lots that happens a lot when there's people from the US. They're like, "Oh, you're from Scotland." I'm like, "Yeah." And so anyway, there was that incident, which that one completely fine. Like people ask me if I'm from here sometimes. I don't really care about that. And then it was nice. We had a nice little conversation. She seems like a lovely person and everything. So yeah. And then anyway, like 2 days later, I was talking to her again. And then there's this guy that comes over and we were like talking. I was talking with her, talking for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. This guy joins in. And he says to me, "You speak really good English." I'm like, "Thank you." And then and then he was like, "No, like you speak really good English." I'm like, "Thank you." And then I just sort of was just like sitting like, shall I say something? Shall I not? Um, I don't really know like if I should correct him or not. And then but I'm like, this woman already knows I'm from Scotland. I'm like and also I guess I kind of have to say something. So I was just like, "Yeah, I'm from Scotland." He's like, "Oh, really?" It's like now that I hear you talking, I can tell like I can tell by the accent. I can sort of get a bit of the accent. I'm like, "Ha, that's funny," because like a lot of people would have been offended by that, which I'm not because like I get it sometimes. Like I've got it a couple times in the UK as well. I got people asking where I'm from, and like I don't really care that much. Like I know I look different, so I don't really have a reason to be annoyed at it. And he was trying to give me a compliment. He was trying to say that I had good English because he thought I was Honduran and English was my second language, which, okay, I'm not offended that people think I'm Honduran. It's not anything bad for me, but I think the shock was just that it's like he's a native English speaker and couldn't tell that that English was my first language, which again I'm like kind of whatever, but at the same time I'm like I feel like I feel like he should kind of know because he said he'd been to Scotland as well. So I'm like I feel like that's kind of something that you should know at least or be aware of. Like that, there's other accents that, there are other accents from countries that speak English fluently, that's not, country that's Canada or the US because they both have similar accents. But yeah, it's just sort of interesting. I find it so funny. Like I was laughing, but like I didn't want to laugh in front of him because I didn't want him to feel embarrassed or anything. But I was laughing. I found it so funny and I had to tell some people. I had to tell like some of my friends and colleagues. I'm just like this funny thing just happened to me. I think it's really funny. So yeah. It's like, well, I'm glad that it appears I can speak English because if I didn't, that would be a bit of a problem. But yeah, like because if I couldn't speak English fluently, what could I speak fluently? I don't know, because I don't speak other languages fluently. I mean, I can speak Spanish, but I wouldn't say fluent. Obviously, not the same way I can speak English. But yeah, um, so anyway, that was kind of funny, and it's just so interesting. Like, I don't know, being here and feeling even though like I'm not Honduran, obviously, like I'm from Scotland, but I guess like feeling like I fit in here more so than with actual native English speaking people, especially when those people from the US were there and then they were all thinking like, obviously I'm not from the US anyway, so like it's not like I would fit in with them either, but at the same time like we all speak the same first language. So yeah, and it was just so interesting, like having like experiencing this and sort of realizing that, yeah, just being aware of like the differences in culture, like differences in appearance and everything like that. And I wouldn't say like any of it was like, a huge like racially like issue. I don't think I've ever experienced like very like extreme hate because of the way I look. Like there was one time I was kicked out of a shop and I think it was, I mean, I wasn't doing anything wrong. I just went into the shop and then this woman was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm just looking around." And she just like stood, like completely blocked me from going in. Then she was like, "This is not a look around type of shop." And then I just turned to my friend and I'm like, "Are we getting kicked out?" And then she was like, "I think so." And then we both looked at each other and we looked at her and she just stood there like this with her arms folded. And then I'm just like, "Okay." And then we just walked out and like that was kind of bad because yeah. Because my friend is not white either, so like I'm just like, oh, well, that's kind of weird. I mean, it could have been other factors. It could have been because we were teenagers. I think we're like 14 maybe. I'd say about 14, yeah. And yeah, so anyway, like, it's not, I think that's probably the worst thing I've experienced, I think, as far as I can remember. But yeah, I mean, I guess like it's gonna happen, it's inevitable, but it's so interesting that I feel like here I fit in more than I do in my own country, which I don't know, it's weird because like even in like other countries, like like I said, I'm half black, half white. So if I go to countries where it's predominantly black, then people call me white. So I don't know, even then, like I feel like, okay, I guess I just don't fit in appearance wise, but it's so interesting that I do here. And it was not something that I expected, but it's very interesting. And I think I actually quite like it. I think that to be honest, that's probably one of the reasons that motivated me a lot to just speak Spanish really well and wanted me to sound fluent and sound like a native speaker because I think I was just longing for that feeling of fitting in because I mean as much as it's not like it's not like I don't want to be different, it's not like I don't want to be myself, like I do, but there's just like it's kind of nice when people just don't stare at you when you walk down the street and when people don't think, "Oh, you're not from here, you're from somewhere else." um and I don't know, it's not like it's a huge bad thing, but like it's also, I don't know, I just feel like it's sort of nice when people don't just look at me and think like, "Oh, what do you know? You're foreign." Like, okay. Even though I am foreign here, it's such a weird feeling. It's kind of hard to describe. But yeah. So anyway, this could be, well, could come across as more of a sensitive topic. So I did very much try my best not to say anything that would offend anyone or anything like that. But if I have, please tell me because I would want to edit, bits out. So the last thing I would want to do is offend anyone. But yeah. So anyway, I hope this has been a bit interesting. This is just my experience. I want to say that alone. I'm not saying that, yeah, I'm not saying that this could like reflect anyone else's experiences. These are only how I felt and my experiences in Scotland and, well, and yeah, I guess I can say Scotland. I don't think I spoke that much about my time being in the US, but yeah, and being here in Honduras. So strictly my opinions, and I don't want to offend anyone out of like for anything that I've said with anything that I've said. So yeah. Anyway, let me know if this has been interesting, and yes, thank you for listening.